The ships surrounded the human colony vessel like wolves circling wounded prey. Commander Lucy stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, watching the alien fleet through the viewport. Her hands were steady, but her heart was not. 8,000 human survivors depended on her decisions, and she had run out of good options. Earth was gone. The planet that had birthed humanity had been swallowed by an expanding sun 3 years ahead of every scientific prediction. The evacuation had been chaos. Billions died. Only a handful of ships escaped, and the Wanderer was the last one still flying. They had traveled through 12 star systems looking for a new home. Every habitable world was already claimed. Every species they met turned them away. Now their food supplies were running low, their water recyclers were failing, and their jump drive had fuel for only one more transit. The only safe harbor within reach was space. Ambassador Al materialized on the bridge via hologram. He was tall and, with a hard shell covering his body and large compound eyes that showed no warmth. His species had controlled this region of space for thousands of years, and they did not welcome strangers. "You seek passage through our territory," Al said. His voice came through a translator box, flat and mechanical. "You seek to settle on worlds under our protection." "We seek only survival," Lucy replied. "Our people are dying, we have nowhere else to go." "Survival has a price, Commander. They do not offer charity." Lucy had expected this. Every species wanted something. Resources, technology, labor. She was prepared to negotiate. "Name your terms." The ambassador's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. "The terms are not ours to set. They belong to the—" "I don't know that word." "Your language calls them dragons." Al waved one clawed hand, and a holographic image appeared between them. Lucy felt her blood turn to ice. The creature in the image was massive beyond comprehension. Its body was covered in scales that shifted between black and deep purple. 6 eyes sat arranged in a crown around its skull, each one burning with ancient intelligence. Wings like sheets of darkness spread from its back, and its claws looked capable of tearing through starship hulls. "The guards the passage to our space," Al explained. "It has done so since before my species learned to walk upright. All who wish to enter must pay tribute." "What kind of tribute?" "Living tribute, young, innocent, no older than 10 of your years." The bridge erupted into chaos. Officers shouted in disbelief. Someone cursed loudly. Lucy raised her hand for silence, her mind racing to process what she had just heard. "You want us to sacrifice a child?" "The requires it. This is not cruelty, Commander. It is simply the way of things. The dragon must feed and it prefers the young. Their fear is, or so we understand." "This is barbaric." "This is survival." Al leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting the dim light of the bridge. "You have 72 hours to decide. Provide the tribute, and your people will have safe passage to a new home. Refuse, and you will drift in space until your supplies run out and your people die slowly of thirst and starvation." The hologram flickered and disappeared. Lucy stood alone on the bridge, surrounded by her crew but feeling utterly isolated. She had commanded warships during Earth's final years. She had made decisions that sent soldiers to their deaths. But this was different. This was asking her to murder a child. She called a meeting of the ship's council. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued that they should fight, even though their weapons were no match for the fleet. Others suggested trying to find another route, even though the navigators confirmed there was none. A few whispered that perhaps the sacrifice was acceptable if it meant saving 8,000 lives. "We cannot become monsters to survive," said Father Gregory, the ship's chaplain. "What would be the point of living if we abandon everything that makes us human?" "Easy words from a man with no children on this ship," snapped a woman named. Her twin daughters were asleep in the family quarters below. "You're not the one who has to look at their faces every day knowing we chose to let them die." Dr. Henry Park, the ship's chief medical officer, spoke quietly but firmly. I've run the numbers. We have 43 days of food left. The water recyclers will fail in 30. Even if we ration everything, we cannot survive long enough to reach any other destination. So we become child murderers, Lucy said bitterly. So we make an impossible choice, Henry replied. One child or 8,000 people, I hate it. God knows I hate it, but I don't see another way. The vote was taken. 4,217 people voted to comply with the demand. 3,783 voted against. Democracy had spoken, even if the words tasted like ash. Lucy announced that they would need a volunteer, a family willing to give up their child for the survival of the species. She hated herself for speaking the words, but she spoke them anyway. No one came forward that night or the next. On the third day, with only hours remaining before the deadline, a man appeared at Lucy's quarters. His name was Daniel. He was 34 years old, with dark hair and tired eyes. In his arms, he carried his sleeping daughter. The girl's name was Maya. She was 7 years old. She had dark hair like her father and a small scar on her chin from a fall 2 years ago. She wore pajamas decorated with cartoon rockets, and she sucked her thumb in her sleep the way she had done since she was a baby. Her mother died when Earth fell, Daniel said. His voice was steady, but Lucy could see the tears he was holding back. She has no one else. When I'm gone, she'll be alone anyway. The other families have each other. They have futures. Maya and I only have the past. Daniel, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. He looked down at his daughter, memorizing her face. I already said goodbye. I told her she's going on an adventure, that she's going to see something amazing. His voice cracked. Please don't let her be afraid. Whatever happens, don't let her wake up scared. Lucy had never felt so helpless in her life. She was the commander. She was supposed to have solutions, but she had nothing to offer this man except her witnessing of his sacrifice. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Daniel kissed Maya's forehead one last time. He breathed in the smell of her hair, the warm weight of her small body in his arms. Then he placed her in Lucy's arms and walked away without looking back. If he had looked back, he would not have been able to leave. Lucy held the sleeping child and wept silently. In a few hours, she would place Maya on a shuttle programmed for a one-way journey. She would send a 7-year-old girl to be devoured by a monster so that 8,000 people could live. This was the price of survival. Lucy had never hated anything more in her entire life. The shuttle carried Maya through a gateway that existed between dimensions. Stars burned in colors that had no names. Space folded and twisted in ways that should have been impossible. The small vessel moved deeper into a realm where the normal rules of the universe did not apply. Maya woke up during the journey. The sedative Dr. Park had given her was supposed to last for many more hours, but something about this strange space made it wear off faster. She blinked in the dim emergency lighting, confused and alone. "Daddy," she called out. Her voice echoed in the empty shuttle. No one answered. Maya climbed out of her seat. Her small hands worked the buckles with the ease of a child who had grown up on starships. She had spent her whole life learning how to move through vessels like this one. She was not afraid of being alone in space. She walked to the viewport and pressed her face against the glass. That was when she saw the dragon. It was curled around something that might have been a moon, its body so large that Maya's mind struggled to understand what she was seeing. Scales covered its skin, rippling with colors that shifted between black and purple like oil on water. 6 eyes opened as the shuttle approached, each one larger than the tiny vessel carrying Maya. The dragon's mouth could have swallowed a battleship. Its claws were longer than skyscrapers. Its wings spread out like sheets of living darkness, blocking out the strange stars behind it. Maya should have screamed. Any child would have screamed. Instead, she pressed her palm against the glass and whispered one word. Pretty. The shuttle landed on a floating platform in the center of the dragon's domain. The hatch opened automatically, and warm air rushed in. Maya stepped outside, her rocket pajamas fluttering in a breeze that came from nowhere. The dragon descended toward her. Its movement created waves of heat that washed over the platform. The temperature should have burned Maya alive. The force of the dragon's approach should have knocked her flat, but somehow, impossibly, she stood firm. The massive creature stopped just above the platform. One of its 6 eyes focused on Maya, the pupil contracting as it examined her. That single eye was 3 times her height. Maya waved. Hi, she said. The dragon did not respond. It had never needed to speak to its offerings before. Speaking was not required for consumption. For 300,000 years they had accepted tribute from thee and their allies. The offerings came. The offerings screamed. The offerings died. But none of them had ever waved. Are you the dragon? Maya asked. The people on the station said I was going to meet a dragon. I didn't know dragons were real. I thought they were only in stories. The creature's ancient mind processed this information. The child's heartbeat was slightly elevated, but not from fear. The chemical signatures in her body suggested excitement rather than terror. There was no adrenaline spike, no panic response. This had never happened before. I am, the dragon said at last. Its voice was not sound but vibration, a deep rumble that Maya felt in her bones rather than heard with her ears. Is that your name? It is what I am. I have no name. Maya's face scrunched up in concentration. Everyone should have a name. My daddy says names are important. They're how people know you're real. The dragon lowered its massive head until it was level with the small human. 6 eyes examined her with intense curiosity. In all its countless years, in all the thousands of offerings it had consumed, nothing had ever spoken to it like this. You do not fear me, they observed. You're big, Maya admitted. Really, really big. But my daddy says big things aren't always scary. He says the scary things are the ones you can't see, like the germs that made my mommy sick. Your mother is dead. She got sick on the ship. The doctors couldn't fix her. Maya's voice grew sad for a moment, but then she brightened again. Daddy says she's watching me from somewhere far away. Maybe she can see me right now, meeting a real dragon. The settled its enormous body around the platform, creating a circle of scales and wings that enclosed Maya in a space that felt almost cozy. The dragon adjusted its body temperature, making the air around the child comfortable rather than scorching. It did not know why it did this. It had never cared about the comfort of offerings before. Can I give you a name? Maya asked suddenly. You wish to name me? If that's okay, everyone should have a name. It's lonely not having one. The ancient dragon, terror of 1,000 species, consumer of countless lives, found itself amused. You may try. Maya studied the creature carefully. She looked at its scales, its eyes, its wings that seemed to drink in light. She thought about the color she saw and the warmth she felt and the deep rumbling voice that didn't hurt her ears. Violet, she decided, because of the purple in your scales, and because my mommy's favorite flower was violets. She grew them in the garden on the ship before she got sick. Something shifted in the dragon's ancient heart. It had been called many things over the devourer, the guardian of the gate, the price of passage, but no one had ever given it a true name. No one had ever looked at it with anything but terror. Until now. Violet, the dragon repeated, tasting the word. This is acceptable. Maya smiled, and it was like watching a small sun rise. Nice to meet you, Violet. My name is Maya. Do you want to be friends? The ancient terror that had haunted this realm since before the learned to build fires looked at the tiny human child in her rocket pajamas. It found that it did want to be friends. This was unprecedented. This changed everything. Yes, Violet said, I would like that very much. Maya's smile grew even wider. She sat down on the platform, crossing her legs beneath her and patted the space beside her. Tell me about yourself. What do you do here all alone? Don't you get bored? Do you have any games? I know lots of games. My friend taught me most of them before we had to leave Earth. And so, for the first time in 300,000 years, the dragon known as sat down to talk with an offering instead of consuming it. The conversation would last for many hours. It would change the fate of civilizations. But neither of them knew that yet. For now, they were simply two lonely beings who had found each other in the darkness between stars, a monster and a child becoming friends. Daniel sat in his quarters aboard the Wanderer and did not move. He had been sitting in the same position for 6 hours. His hands rested in his lap. His eyes were open but saw nothing. The other refugees on the ship gave him space, walking past his door in silence. No one knew what to say to a man who had just sacrificed his daughter. The shuttle carrying Maya had departed that morning. Daniel had watched it go from the observation deck, a tiny speck of light disappearing into the dimensional gateway. He had stood there until long after it vanished, hopping for something he could not name. Now he sat in darkness, surrounded by Maya's things, her stuffed rabbit, her drawings, the small shoes she had but refused to throw away because they were lucky shoes that had helped her win a race once. He wondered if she had woken up. He wondered if she had been afraid. He hoped she had not been afraid. In the command center, Commander Lucy received confirmation from that the tribute had been delivered. The gates to their space would open in 12 hours. The Wanderer and its 8,000 survivors would have safe passage to a new home. They had won. They had survived. Lucy did not feel like she had won anything at all. Far away, in the space between dimensions, the observers watched their monitoring screens with growing confusion. 7 hours had passed since the human child entered this domain. The dragon had not consumed her. The sensors showed the two of them together on the floating platform, the massive creature curled around the tiny girl like a protective wall. Perhaps the is playing with its food, one observer suggested. The does not play, another responded. It has never played, not once in 300,000 years of recorded history. Then what is it doing? No one had an answer. Inside the dragon's realm, Maya had fallen asleep. She lay curled against Violet's foreleg, using a fold of wing membrane as a blanket. The dragon had made the air around her warm and comfortable. It had not moved in 4 hours, unwilling to disturb the sleeping child. Violet did not need sleep. It had not slept in 70,000 years, but it understood the concept and it watched Maya rest with something like wonder. The offerings had never trusted it. They had begged for their lives. They had screamed and cried and tried to bargain. Some had attempted to fight. One had tried to offer treasures beyond imagination. None had ever simply curled up against its scales and closed their eyes. None had ever given it a name. Violet examined its own feelings and found them troubling. It was supposed to consume offerings. That was its function. That was what it had always done. But Maya had called it pretty. Maya had given it a name. Maya had asked to be friends. Violet did not want to consume Maya. This was wrong. This went against everything the dragon had been for countless. And yet, the feeling remained. The dragon wanted to protect this child, not destroy her. Maya stirred in her sleep. Her small hand reached out and found Violet's scales, gripping them gently. A soft smile crossed her face as she dreamed of something pleasant. "Mommy," she murmured. The dragon's heart, ancient and cold, felt something crack inside it. When Maya woke, she found Violet watching her with all 6 eyes. The attention should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt safe. "Good morning," Maya said, rubbing sleep from her face. "Or good night. I don't know what time it is here." "Time is different in this place," Violet replied. You have slept for 8 hours. That's a long time. Daddy only lets me sleep 7 hours usually. Maya's stomach growled loudly and she giggled in embarrassment. Sorry, I'm hungry. Violet had not fed another creature in 300,000 years. It had only consumed them. But somewhere in its ancient memory, it remembered how to create rather than destroy. The dragon extended its awareness into the space around them and pulled. A ball of water appeared, floating in front of Maya. Beside it materialized something that looked like a fruit, round and golden. Maya stared with wide eyes. How did you do that? I am old and this is my home. Here, I can make things as easily as I can unmake them. That's amazing, like magic. Perhaps. Maya took the fruit and bit into it. Juice ran down her chin and she wiped it with her sleeve. It's good, kind of like a peach butt. She ate in comfortable silence while Violet watched. The dragon had never watched anything eat before. It had never cared what happened before consumption. But now it found the sight of Maya enjoying her food strangely satisfying. Violet, Maya asked between bites. Yes. Why am I here? The dragon had been asked this question before by other offerings. The answer had always been simple. You are here to be consumed. You are tribute. You are the price of passage. But that answer felt wrong now, cruel, incomplete. The bring me offerings, Violet said carefully. Ships want to pass through their space. I guard the way. The offerings are the price. Maya thought about this with the serious concentration of a child working through a difficult problem. So you're like a toll booth. Daddy explained those to me once. You have to pay to use certain roads. In a sense, yes. And I'm the toll. Yes. Maya looked at the remaining fruit in her hand, then back up at the dragon. Are you going to eat me? It was such a direct question. No adult had ever asked it so plainly. They had danced around the truth, begged for mercy, tried to find ways to escape their fate. Maya simply asked, the way a child asks about anything else. I have eaten every offering that came before you, Violet admitted. But you haven't eaten me yet. No. Why not? The dragon searched for an answer and found too many. Because you called me pretty. Because you gave me a name. Because you fell asleep against my scales like I was safe. Because in 300,000 years, you are the first being to treat me like something other than a monster. I do not know, Violet said finally. Maya nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. My daddy says it's okay not to know things. He says asking questions is how we learn. Your father sounds very wise. He's the person I know. Maya's face grew sad. I miss him. Do you think I'll see him again? Violet looked at the child who had named it, the child who had trusted it, the child who had asked questions no one had ever thought to ask. And the ancient dragon made a decision that would reshape the stars. Yes, Violet said, I will make sure of it. Maya's face lit up with hope. Really? Really, I am taking you home. For the first time in 300,000 years, the prepared to leave its domain. For the first time ever, it did so not to destroy, but to protect. All because a little girl in rocket pajamas had asked to be friends. The High Council went into emergency session when the news reached them. There was moving. In all of recorded history, the dragon had never left its domain between dimensions. It stayed at the gateway, accepted tribute, and guarded the passage to space. That was how things had always been. That was the natural order of the universe. But now the sensors showed the massive creature approaching the gateway itself. And riding on its back, small and alive and impossible, was the human child. Ambassador Al refused to believe the reports at first. This cannot be happening. That does not carry passengers. It consumes them. The data is clear, Ambassador, his aide responded. The child is alive. She appears to be speaking with the dragon. Speaking. Yes, She has been talking continuously for the past 3 hours. Al's compound eyes flickered with something that might have been fear. They had built their entire civilization on this protection. Other species paid tribute to pass through their space. The dragon was the foundation of their power. What happened when that foundation cracked? On Violet's back, Maya was telling stories about her life. She talked about growing up on the colony ship. She talked about the gardens where she liked to play, about her friend who had marbles that sparkled in the light, about the day the sirens went off and everyone ran to escape pods while Earth died behind them. She talked about her mother, who had gotten sick with something the doctors could not cure. She talked about the funeral where they played her mom's favorite song while her body was recycled back into the ship's systems, because that was how things worked in space. Everything got used again. She talked about being scared sometimes, and about being brave sometimes, and about being confused about why bad things happen to good people. Violet listened to every word. The dragon had not listened to anything but screams in longer than most species had existed. Listening to a child talk about her life was strange and wonderful and heartbreaking all at once. "Did you have a family?" Maya asked as they approached the gateway. The dragon thought about the question. It had never considered where it came from. It simply was. It had always been. "I do not remember," Violet admitted. "That's sad." "Perhaps." "You know what that means." Maya leaned forward on Violet's neck, her small hands gripping the scales. "That means we can be family now. If you don't have anyone and my mommy is gone, maybe we can be each other's family." Something shifted in the dragon's ancient heart. Something warm grew in the cold spaces where nothing had lived for. "I would like that," Violet said. The gateway loomed before them, a swirling portal of impossible colors. Beyond it lay normal space, where the fleet waited, where the human ship drifted, where Maya's father sat alone in darkness. "Ready?" Violet asked. Maya nodded, her face brave and excited and scared all at once. "Ready." They passed through the gateway together. Aboard the Wanderer, Commander Lucy received a transmission that made no sense. The video feed showed a dragon emerging from the dimensional portal. The creature was enormous, blocking out stars as it moved through space, and on its back sat a small girl in rocket pajamas, waving at the camera with both hands. "Hi, I'm coming back. This is my friend Violet." The bridge crew stood in complete silence. No one moved, no one breathed. "That's not possible," Dr. Henry Park whispered. Lucy stared at the screen, watching a dead girl smile and wave, and she began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. Too much shock and relief and disbelief mixed together. "Apparently," she said, "it is possible." She grabbed the ship's communication system. "Daniel, please report to the main hangar immediately. Your daughter is requesting to see you." In his dark quarters, Daniel heard the words. He did not believe them at first. He thought he was dreaming or going crazy or dying. But then he heard Maya's voice through the speakers, chattering happily about her adventure, and he started to run. He sprinted through the corridors of the Wanderer. He shoved past other refugees who stared at him with confusion. He did not stop to explain. He did not stop for anything. The hangar doors opened in front of him. Maya stood there, small and alive and smiling. Behind her, filling half the hangar bay, crouched an impossible creature. The dragon had made itself smaller somehow, though it was still the size of a shuttle. 6 eyes watched Daniel approach, ancient and powerful and strangely gentle. "Daddy," Maya ran toward him, arms outstretched. Daniel fell to his knees and caught her. He held her so tight that she squeaked in protest, but he could not let go. Tears poured down his face. His whole body shook with sobs he could not control. "I thought you were gone," he managed to say. "I thought I'd never see you again." "Violet saved me," Maya said into his shoulder. "She's my friend. She's a dragon, but she's nice. Can she stay with us?" Daniel looked up at the massive creature watching them. Its 6 eyes held an intelligence that was clearly not human, clearly not anything he had ever encountered. But there was no threat in that gaze, only something that looked almost like hope. "You saved her," Daniel said. "She saved me," Violet replied. The dragon's voice rumbled through the hangar like distant thunder. "I did not know I needed saving until she arrived." The demanded answers. Ambassador Al appeared as a hologram in the hangar, his translator box struggling to keep up with his furious clicking. "You have abandoned your duty. You have broken the agreement. Ships will pass through the gateway without tribute now. Our entire system of control is finished." Violet turned its massive head toward the ambassador. When the dragon spoke, the walls of the hangar shook. "I made no agreement. Your ancestors found me drifting in the void. They offered me food. I ate it. This was not a contract, it was convenience." "You owe us." "I owe you nothing. I am older than your species. I was consuming prey before your planet cooled. Your empire rose because I allowed it. Now I have chosen differently." "Then we will destroy you." 6 ancient eyes focused on the with something that might have been amusement. "You are welcome to try, but understand this. For 300,000 years I accepted tribute because I had no reason to refuse. Now I have a reason. This child gave me something no offering ever has." "What could a human possibly give you?" "A name," the dragon said. "A family, a purpose beyond hunger." Maya tugged on Violet's massive claw. "Don't hurt them, they're just scared." The ancient terror of the stars looked down at the small girl who had changed everything. "As you wish," Violet said softly. The ambassador's hologram flickered and vanished. His threats meant nothing now. The old order was broken, and something new was being born in its place. Daniel held his daughter close and watched the dragon that had somehow become part of their family. He did not understand what had happened. He did not know what the future held. But his daughter was alive, and that was enough. That was everything. 1 year later, the galaxy had transformed. The human refugees from the Wanderer settled on a planet they named Haven. It was a green world with blue oceans and gentle weather, located in what had once been space. They could not stop them. They could not stop anything anymore. Violet stayed with the humans. The dragon had learned to make itself smaller, about the size of a large house, so it could move among the new settlement without crushing buildings. Children climbed on its back during playtime. Adults came to it for advice, drawn by its ancient wisdom. Maya visited every single day, bringing stories and games and the simple company of friendship. The empire fell apart without this protection. Other species no longer had to pay tribute to pass through the gateway. Trade routes opened that had been closed for. The galaxy began to change in ways no one had predicted. And word spread about the human child who had tamed the dragon. The story grew as it traveled from system to system. By the time it reached the far edges of known space, it had become legend. A tale of a species so strange, so remarkable, that even ancient cosmic horrors could find friendship through their kindness. Other dragons began to emerge. There were more than anyone had realized. They had been scattered across the galaxy, hidden in the spaces between dimensions, dormant or isolated or simply uninterested in the affairs of lesser beings. But Violet's story reached them through channels older than any civilization. A child without fear, a name given freely, a family formed from the most unlikely connection. One by one, the other dragons sought out humans. Not to consume them, but to understand them. To learn what quality this species possessed that could turn ancient enemies into friends. To discover how a small girl in rocket pajamas could look at a monster and see only something lonely. The first dragon arrived at Haven 6 months after the settlement was founded. It was silver where Violet was purple, with 4 eyes instead of 6. It landed at the edge of town and waited. Maya walked out to meet it, just as she had walked across that floating platform to meet Violet. She was not afraid. "Hi," she said. "My name is Maya. What's yours?" The silver dragon admitted it had no name. "Would you like one?" Maya asked. By the end of the day, the dragon called itself Sterling, and it had asked to stay. More came after that. Dragons of every color and size, ancient beings who had spent eternities alone, all drawn by the same impossible story. Humanity welcomed each one. They gave names to creatures that had never been named. They offered friendship to beings that had never known kindness. The galaxy watched in amazement as the last survivors of a dead world became the most connected species in known space. Maya turned 8 years old on Haven. Her birthday party included her father, who had become chief engineer of the settlement. It included her friend, who had cried for an hour when she learned Maya was alive. It included Dr. Park and Commander, and dozens of refugees who had come to celebrate the girl who saved them. It included Violet, of course, and Sterling, and 3 other dragons who had joined the growing community. Maya sat on Violet's head as her father lit candles on a cake. It was not a perfect cake. Nothing on Haven was perfect yet, but it was theirs, made with their own hands in their own new home. "Make a wish," Daniel said. Maya closed her eyes. She thought about her mother, who had loved violets. She thought about the scared refugees who had voted to sacrifice her, now looking at her with gratitude and guilt. She thought about the lonely dragon who had become her best friend. She wished that everyone could find their own Violet, someone who seemed scary but was really just alone, someone who needed a friend. Then she blew out the candles. 5 years later, humanity had become the most protected species in the galaxy. It was not because they were strong. Earth had fallen. Their technology was outdated. Their numbers were small. But they had something no other species possessed. They had the ability to see good in anything. They adopted the abandoned. They befriended the isolated. They named the nameless and loved the unloved. They looked at monsters and saw friends waiting to be made. Maya was 13 when she gave her first public speech. She stood before representatives of 50 different species, all gathered on Haven to learn from humanity's example. "When I was 7, she said, I was sent to die. My people were desperate. They made an impossible choice. I understand that choice now in ways I couldn't as a child." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "But here's what I learned in that dragon's realm. The universe is not as cold as we fear. Terrible things can become wonderful friends. Lonely monsters can become beloved family. Sometimes the thing that saves you isn't weapons or technology or cleverness. Sometimes it's just being kind to something that has never known kindness." Violet raised its massive head behind her, 6 eyes shining. "The thought they understood power," Maya continued. "They thought power came from fear and control. They were wrong. Real power comes from connection, from choosing to see the best in others, from offering a name to something that has never been named." She reached up, and Violet extended a massive claw to meet her hand. "My name is Maya. This is my friend Violet, and together we're going to show the universe what kindness can do." The applause lasted a long time. And across the stars, on hundreds of worlds, beings of every description heard the story of the little girl who named a dragon. They heard about a species that refused to see monsters, only friends they had not met yet. They heard about kindness that could melt ancient hatred. They heard about a child in rocket pajamas who waved at terror and asked to play. Some of them, hearing this story, began to hope. Some of them began to change. And slowly, one friendship at a time, the galaxy became a little less cold and a little more kind. All because a 7-year-old girl had looked at the most terrible creature in the universe and said one simple word: "Pretty." That was where it started. No one could predict where it would end. But wherever it went, Maya and her dragon would be there, making friends of monsters, one name at a time.